Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to see you all here. For those of you that I've been able to talk to so far, it's been great. For those I haven't, please come and see me because I want to hear your stories. So, today I'm going to be talking about upgrading your custom code to 7.1. Now, we're not going to get into a lot of nitty-gritty code details. This is really going to be tools to help you get there, and there will be some Q&A time at the end. So if you want to start thinking about your questions, we can play Stump the Chump and see how well I do. So upgrading to 7.1, 7.0, whatever, you need to have a plan. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to spend this weekend upgrading to 7.1 and it'll be ready on Monday. You have to approach it as an actual project, and it has to be structured. And one of the key components you want in your project plan is, well, not these guys per se, but you do want to keep it simple. An upgrade project is not the time when you want to be refactoring your code from Portlet wars into OSGI modules. It's not the time to look at fixing bugs or adding new features. Your upgrade project is going to be hard enough just dealing with the upgrade. Anything else that you add in there is going to blow out your schedule, it's going to blow out your budget, it's going to consume all your resources. So treat it as a separate phase. Tackle your upgrade, get on to 7.1, and then start looking at the other pieces. You also need to have an environment ready. So you need to know, am I using, for upgrading my code, do I need to have the upgraded database? Or am I okay with using a blank database and just focusing on the code upgrade? You need to have the source for the version that you're using. This is like a rule that I swear by. The source is going to be your reference material, your source of truth for anything that you're trying to diagnose. And you need to have the source for the version you're targeting. So it's not good enough to have the 7.0 GA1 when you're going to be targeting 7.1 GA2, for example. You have to match up the source because there's going to be enough changes in there that when you're trying to analyze or debug something, you need to know exactly what you're working against. You need the tools. So you're talking about maybe updating Gradle, definitely updating Blade, possibly updating your Eclipse IDE with the new Liferay plugin, IntelliJ with the Liferay plugin, but you have to have the right tools. And finally, you have to know from a revision control perspective, how are you going to proceed? Are you going to fork your old code and then have two forks going, one for 7.1? Are you going to branch? Are you eventually going to merge? How are you going to deal with fixing bugs along both lines? So these are things that have to be part of your plan so you know when it happens later on how you're going to tackle these things. So you want to use the tools. I always tell clients, use the upgrade assistant. The IDE team has done a great job at providing tools to help you get your custom code up to the version that you're targeting. The assistant will help find those points where breaking changes, which Liferay has documented, where those apply to your code. And it's going to show when you find those breaks in your code, ways that you can solve those. The next piece is your theme. So in Liferay 7.0, all themes are based on Bootstrap 3. On 7.1, themes are based on Bootstrap 4. The one thing that they have in there for 7.1, which is there to help you, is a Bootstrap 3 compatibility layer. So this is going to help you get your theme that you currently have for 7.0, get it running under 7.1 so that you can continue your other upgrade development efforts. It's meant to be a stopgap measure. don't plan on it always being in there because it could disappear with the next GA. I know it's in there right now. I have no idea what the plan is for it, but you don't want to sit back and say, oh, I'll be able to use the compatibility layer a year from now because it may not be there. And it's also not a complete solution. It's like 80–90% of a solution, but if you're using an edge case for a UI widget, it may or may not work the way that you expect. So you definitely need to plan on getting your 7.1 theme at some point. So for your code upgrades, there's a number of things that are the same, there's a number of things that are different. So let's go over what's the same. OSGI is still there. It's a key part of 7.1. It's going to be a key part going forward. Portlet jars are still there. It's still going to work. Portlet wars. The war support for deploying portlets like Spring MVC, JSF, even classic Liferay MVC as portlet wars are both still supported. Dependency management. The pain that it is still there. Liferay Portlet MVC is still there. JSF, 100% supported under 7.1. It's not going away. Spring Portlet MVC, 100% supported on 7.1, not going away. So what's different? The module organization in the core. There's been some refactoring, some reorganizing of the core Portlet modules. You're going to find them in different locations. Not a huge deal, but it's something to keep an eye out for. Portlet 3, JSR Spec 362. It's coming. It's not there yet, but it's coming. Bundle version numbers are different. In 7.0, your kernel is 2.x. In 7.1, it's 3.x. Little things like that, not huge. But again, the tooling is going to help you with the BOM support. APIs are going to be different. A few changes along the APIs. They've been moved to different packages. Some have been taken out of the core, moved over to modules in OSGI, changes in signatures, whatever. But they shouldn't be too bad. They told me they were going to play with me back there. So, dependency management. It's up here twice. Not because it's changing, or not because it's the same, but because there are some differences. Through tooling, which you heard about from Greg Emerson's talk today, we have improved support to help you tackle those dependency management issues that we all know and love. And finally, the modern JS support. So if you've seen Ivan's talk on the modern JS framework support that they've been adding in, that's in 7.1. So there's a lot of really good changes that are in there that you're going to want to take advantage of. So the fun stuff for 7.1. Portlet 3 is going to be soon. It hasn't been announced yet. Maybe in a future GA, but it's coming. Portlet 3 brings with it annotations. The Portlet XML file goes away under Portlet 3. It's all replaced with annotations. There are new annotations to help your render methods, and there's other annotations thrown in that I don't know how I'd use them, but I'm sure you guys can find a way. CDI support. Ray had his talk yesterday about the CDI support that's coming. That too is going to be in there, and along with that are some new scopes. Asynchronous resource requests. So in your resource request, if you have a long-running process, like you have to build a spreadsheet, or you're creating an image, or you're doing some sort of long-running query in order to generate a result, you can now spin that off as a thread to get improved performance for your resource request handling. And finally, there's the sexy Ajax Portlet Hub. It actually says that in the specification itself. It calls it the sexy Ajax Portlet Hub. So if you don't believe me, check it out. So some things that you want to consider. I have nothing but really great experiences using the Liferay upgrade framework. And a lot of people look at it like, upgrade framework, that's Liferay's thing, or that's only for database, or any number of other excuses. At worst, it's probably poorly named, but it's really an environment upgrade process. So through these things, you create code in order to affect change in the environment. It'll only run once. Liferay makes sure it's executed when it needs to, but not over and over again. So it's an improvement over startup processes. If you have GDPR issues, which many of you may or in the future might have to deal with those, there's improved GDPR support out there through custom APIs that you can use to support anonymizing and deleting and exporting your own custom data along with the Liferay data. Forms in 7.1 have seen a significant improvement. You may find that through the custom form in 7.1 that you might be able to replace a custom portlet that you had to create before. So taking away programming responsibilities that you might have will only make your future upgrades easier. And finally, the sexy Ajax Portlet Hub. It's going to offer some new opportunities for Angular-based portlets that even right now from an Angular or Vue or React perspective, it's going to bring a lot of opportunity there for doing some really cool stuff. So the one thing you have to know is with all upgrades, this is not going to be you. You're not a guy stuck out on a deserted island all by yourself to fend for yourself. There are resources out there to help you. And many of these resources we've talked about yesterday and today. So I don't necessarily have to go into all of them. They're coming up on the screen slowly. But there are resources out there. And I'd encourage you to go to the forum, my favorite hangout, because I like helping you guys, and I like knowing that information that I provide is going to be there for the next person looking for a solution. And that's the end of the presentation portion of my lecture. So actually, I wanted to take time to open it up for questions from everyone. What are your upgrade concerns? How can we help you? What do you need? Who wants to go first? Great, no questions. Easy upgrades. Yes, sir. The back row.
Back there.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So it's possible to upgrade from 6.2 to 7.1?
Yes, absolutely possible. You do not have to upgrade to 7.0 specifically. The upgrade process that I talked about earlier, Liferay uses it extensively for its own upgrades. So the upgrade processes include all the steps to go from 6.x to 7.0 and then on to 7.1. And that's why I encourage the use of upgrade processes for your own stuff, because that allows you to build on that background in order to make upgrades easier.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have one here.
Okay.
On? Yes.
Yes.
I wanted to ask,
how much can we expect from the compatibility layer for Bootstrap 3 to Bootstrap 4, and how bad will it be if we don't move directly to Bootstrap 4?
So there's no commitment from Liferay to maintain or support the compatibility layer. So what is in there is like all that's going to be there. So like I said, it's about an 80% solution. So Liferay used it for tackling their own 7.1 upgrades, and I think we can take advantage of it also. And it's going to cover most of what we're doing, because it deals with all the standard classes. Where you're going to run into issues is if you're using an edge case, a complicated UI widget from Bootstrap 3 that is completely different in Bootstrap 4. Those are going to be your areas of concern. But for general theme, you should almost see, knock on wood, no real concerning issues when you take it to 7.1. But like I said, you don't want to plan on it being around forever, because I have no clue how long it's going to last. Olaf?
Make some noise.
Hi.
Hi.
How about the community edition of Liferay Portal? I'm concerned about migration from 6.1 to 7.1.
So the database upgrade, that side of things, it does support going from 6.1 all the way to 7.1. When I go to my client, I will typically counsel them to stop off at each point in between, to upgrade to 6.2, then upgrade to 7, and then finally up to 7.1. The reason that I do that is because I want to capture a backup at each critical point. Because if you're looking at a total database upgrade time of 12 hours, for example, you don't want to get to the end and run into an upgrade exception that forces you to roll back the database to the very beginning, fix the data, and then start over. Because you're looking at the full 12 hours again in order to get back to where you were. So if you do your upgrade to 6.2 for the database, you can capture a backup of it then. Then you go to 7. If you're successful, you capture the backup of it then. And that way, it's still going to be the 12 hours, but when you get to the end of that and the failure occurs, if you have to roll back, then maybe you're only going back to the 7.0 version. So you only have 2 hours of upgrade to deal with. From the code perspective, themes are obviously, they're different with every single release. There's nothing we can do there. Your portlet wars that you are creating under the SDK or anything else, those actually will go to 7.1 once you deal with the API changes. But you can deploy the portlet wars to 7.1, and I would encourage you to keep them as portlet wars for your upgrade project. There's no reason to take the time and money and effort to refactor those just to deal with an upgrade. Bring those over as portlet wars, tackle your new development, maybe using OSGI approaches, or continue the portlet war support or portlet war deployment if that works out better for you. But don't refactor everything just to get your upgrade done.
Good afternoon. I have a question regarding X plugins. Basically this feature, it was not part of 7.0. That was added, and there was some rumors that it maybe will be removed again. So what is the status of this possibility?
So Liferay hates the EXT plugin because for them it's a support nightmare. If we all have EXT plugins where we've overridden or replaced a class from Liferay and you call them with a support issue, they're not going to know if the problem that you're calling about is the original Liferay code or if it's something introduced by your custom code in the EXT. So they have been saying for release after release after release, that the EXT is deprecated. They encourage you not to use it because they really do want it to go away. Now with 7.0 and 7.1, they specifically took the approach of trying to get the extension points in the necessary places in the core so that the EXT plugin wouldn't be necessary. And they had the false start with 7.0. They thought that they had enough extension points in that they said, oh, we can take this EXT plugin out now. We don't need it anymore. And what happened was, clients said, hey, I need to extend this, I need to extend that, where there was no extension point, and EXT was the only option. So they brought it back. Now that said, they still want to take it away. But what I would encourage you is if you find a class in Portal Core that your only option is an EXT plugin, you still want to open a ticket with Liferay. Make sure that they're aware that you need this extension point, because that information is what they use to identify those places in the core where they need to put the extension point in, so eventually they can take the EXT plugin away. So if you run into a place where I need to change how mail handling of sending a password changed email notification out, that's something that's like buried deep within the user local service impl. But if you don't tell Liferay, hey, I need this, and you solve it with an EXT because it's really easy to do, they're not going to know that, we have 1,000 clients who are doing this EXT customization because we don't have the extension point there that they need to get in there. So always report that to Liferay so that they know and they can include it in the project, and maybe we can get rid of them forever at some point.
Okay, two questions. On the migration path from 6.2 to 7.0, we have two issues with the build from Maven files with OSGI. And we think it's better to upgrade to Gradle. When is the best time to upgrade to Gradle? Before we do the upgrade to 7.0 or after them? Was the first question?
I would say don't do it. I mean, the first thing you want to do from your Maven side is make sure you have the latest version of the Maven plugins. You could just be facing an issue that was identified in an earlier version of the plugin that has since been replaced. If you're a Maven shop, I mean, you know Maven, you've been doing it, you know how things are put together in Maven. So forcing you down the path of using Gradle may never be a right fit for you or your organization. Me personally, I have a hard time with Gradle because I feel like I'm programming my build. So, I spend enough time programming my portlets, I shouldn't also have to program my build. Now that said, I understand why Gradle beats the pants off of Maven, because you get rid of all that XML, really verbose stuff that goes in there. But it still feels kind of like more structured and more controlled to me. But if you're having problems with the Maven plugin, like I said, the first thing I would do is check to make sure you're using the later versions, because it might be something that's fixed. If not, definitely report it. And if you're asking about switching to Gradle because you want to, then don't do it as part of your upgrade process, but look at it as how am I going to tackle this as a regular project. And it's actually kind of easy to move from Maven to Gradle because all your code and structure, file structure, everything goes over. You're basically just swapping out a POM for a build.gradle. So it's not super difficult to do.
Okay, and second question. We have a lot of Spring M4C portlets, and they're really slow to deploy on 7.1, 7.0. So what do you recommend it for us? Should we re-implement this, or it's better in 7.1?
So I don't know how the difference of the performance between the wars and Spring MVC deployment from 7.0 to 7.1. I wouldn't expect there to be a major difference, but I would need to test it out before I could say. But I think most often the response that we get, which may not be a response that we want to hear, is that startup performance is not necessarily a priority. I know Brian showed how, oh, we got it down to 30 seconds, and that's great, but from Liferay's perspective, just a general perspective, you want to have a solid and fast platform, and if it takes you 30 seconds or 3 minutes to get to that stable platform, it seems like a small price to pay. Now I know that's painful during development, and that's where we're all at. We're trying to be productive, we're trying to push these things out and hope that they go fast. I'd be happy to help you with your Spring guys. Maybe there's some things that we could do in there to refactor those, or look at how they're starting up to see if there's ways that we can improve the time. Go ahead and find me afterwards, and maybe we can compare or exchange emails and go from there. So I have like 3.5 minutes. Who's next? We can do one more.
What are your plans for resources import? Or I have seen on the website it states it's deprecated, so what should we use? Is it LAR, export, import, or? Yeah.
Oh, definitely not LAR export import. For those, so the folks chuckling know how I feel about LAR export import. I wrote a whole blog post on content creation is not a development activity, because people seem to rely on LARs, and I find them to be fragile, and they cause more problems than they potentially can solve. And it's only because the use case for LARs is kind of a fairly limited set of use cases. So LARs aren't the way to go. But we are introducing a new thing called site initializers, which is going to take the place of, eventually, of resource importer. So there are going to be options out there to help you. As part of global services in the US, we actually do a lot of content loading using Groovy scripts in order to invoke the APIs and pull things in. So we can package these as modules that get deployed. So there's lots of other options out there that you can take advantage of, and resource importer going away is not necessarily going to hurt us, other than having to make the changes.
One more there.
Okay. I'm over here. All right, I'll try to be quick. So, in general, in this presentation, I just read the abstract again. You were mentioning what can we do when we upgrade like our code, right? But
yes.
This is some kind of like very optimistic situation, but sometimes we may not be upgrading our code, we might be upgrading somebody else's code, which is, like, frankly speaking, usually the case. And I'm just wondering, do you have any like tips on this process? Because this is usually like the biggest headache for us, right? Mm-hmm. We wouldn't like to do so much refactoring, we wouldn't like to do so much analysis, but maybe you have some like good experience in like this process, how to.
So from an upgrade perspective, I always approach them as just, how can I get the running code from whatever version it's on to 7.1? So like I said, I don't look at changing from Portlet wars over to Portlet modules. I don't look at refactoring code. I don't look at inefficiencies or spaghetti or whatever junk I'm given. My goal is just to get that junk working under 7.1, because that is a project all on its own. Unfortunately, I don't have a magic wand. I can't wave over it and clean up ugly code that people do. I've done ugly code years ago when I was young. I probably still do ugly code now when compared to some of the code coming out of the Liferay core, for example, because I code differently than how they do. But you want to tackle the upgrade to get it to the next environment. And when you have that ugly code, you just have to tackle it as I'm cleaning up ugly code, but do that later on. Don't make it part of your upgrade or you're really going to get stepped on. And I'm down to the last, I'm over by 15 seconds. So where's the hook? I thought I was getting a hook getting pulled off. Thanks, everyone.
From the left.